We all set?
All set.
All right. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second order of business is the oath of office to newly elected trustee. Just read it. Sure. You can read it or I can. Either way. Go ahead. I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of library trustee according to the best of my ability.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of library trustee according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
I believe Jenna already swore Bill Cooney in, correct? Jenna?
Yes,
I did it virtually.
Oh,
and
okay.
Jenna was present and he signed it. We're all set. All right.
We hear you.
All right.
Okay,
We have, Marcia,
Yes,
nominating committee chair.
yes. So the nominating committee, which is myself and Marina and Barbara, met on June 26th to fulfill their obligations, our obligations under the Guilderland Public Library bylaws. And they are as follows: to nominate for approval by the newly elected board, which this is, trustees for the office of president, vice president, and secretary. Currently, Kathy Barber, Alish Merciati, and Narina Melita hold these positions respectively, and each has expressed an interest in retaining their current positions for another term. So the nominating committee voted on June 28th unanimously to recommend each of them for election for another term, pending approval by the new board, which is this group. I could do the second one too. We could do it all together.
Whatever you would prefer.
Well, when we do this, and then I can do trust the new nominees, whatever you like.
Okay. There a motion to approve the nominations that, well, I should say, are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to approve the nominations of Kathy Barber, President, Vice President Alish Melchiada, and Secretary Norina Leda? Is there a motion?
I move.
Who is the? Oh, I'm sorry, that's. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the nominations as proposed by the nominating committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Hearing none. Continue to act as president, and Norina will continue to act as secretary. At least when she is able to attend, will be acting as vice president. The next order of business, the elections of officers.
Those are the ones.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said, I think
The nominating.
that's right, the fiscal year nominating committee.
Yeah.
Um,
So that another obligation of the nominating committee is to nominate for approval trustees to serve as the new nominating committee. The bylaws indicate there should be 3 members of the nominating committee. And the folks interested in being on the new nominating committee were strangely not the same people who are on the current nominating. That would be Barbara Rigo, myself, and Rita. if you all got my memo, those are the three under consideration for a vote by the board and approval. Also, Marina has expressed an interest in being the chair. I'm the current chair and overstayed my welcome by the bylaws. It was only supposed to be 2 consecutive terms, and apparently I served. Jenna informed me that I served 3, so I apologize, my bad. But I can no longer be chair. And Kathy, we took the liberty respectfully to suggest to you that Marina be the new chair.
That sounds good. As you, we don't approve the board committees until the regular business meeting, but the, I have proposed that the nominating committee have be chaired by Marina. And I think we approved that when we approved the board committees, or would you prefer that we propose that now?
It's the nominating committee's responsibility pursuant to the bylaws, so
Okay.
the chair is your prerogative. It was just a suggestion with respect to Marina, but the nominating committee is charged with meeting, getting, expressing expressions of interest, and then proposing to the board what the new committee should be made up of.
Now we have the election of the nominating committee. So is there a motion to elect the new nominating committee? And I would propose that it be chaired by Marina. So moved. Is there a second? Marshall?
I defer to. No,
Vanessa.
to Vanessa.
Okay. Put Vanessa here. Okay, all in favor of the election of the 2023-2024 nominating committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Pursuant to the bylaws, the old committee is hereby discharged of all responsibilities.
So,
Except for it to be reinstated.
We don't need to get to that point.
all right, that passes unanimously. Unanimously at 6:10. All right, we have the annual board authorizations and resolution. So the authorizations, we could either do them separately or do them as a group. Maybe we should do the attorneys separately since there is an attached legal counsel agreement. Is there a motion to have Gervin and Palazzo continue to be our library attorney pursuant to the attached agreement? Is there a motion?
I'll make a
Motion? Okay, is there a second? Sure.
I'll second it.
You, hey Barbara. Oh. Barbara, okay. Since she's on the phone. Okay, all in favor of Gervin Palazzo continuing as our library attorney pursuant to the attached legal counsel agreement?
Can I just ask a few questions before we go? Is this the same agreement that we've had before in place?
Well, there's a price increase.
Yeah, that's my next question.
From 15,000 to 18,000, which I believe is 20%. And I'm not a math whiz, but there has been no price increase in the 10 years that I've been here. So one thought I had about if we go out to RFP is that we're likely to pay the higher figure as opposed to the lower figure, no matter what, just because it hasn't raised in 10 years. So, and that contract that came with the price increase came just before I notified Chris Harrington that we were going to go out with an RFP in the future. So it wasn't influenced by the fact that we were going out for an RFP because I already had it. So, and incidentally, when I said that to her, she wanted to know if there were any concerns, and I said we were just following best practices, issuing an RFP and so on.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Is there any further discussion?
My only other point would be that I clarified with Chris, this agreement requires my signature, which I found kind of strange because he also says that the law firm works for the board. But she said, I can look it up, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said the board authorizes you to sign the contract, but you need to sign the contract. You're in the usually she has most of the stuff.
In court? So,
Barbara, you're not muted.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm on low battery, so we're looking for a booster. Sorry.
Was there any further discussion?
I was just, what were the results of the RFP?
We
did not
haven't,
issue.
we haven't issued it yet.
So then what would we be agreeing to?
It's just your contract extension for a year.
Which can be terminated in 30 days.
Understand, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? All in favor of library attorneys Gervin and Falazza, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? All right, passes at 6:14. I don't know if there's any necessity to, for the next three, items to be broken out. We have library insurance brokers, Penlike Insurance and Marshall and Sterling. Library auditors, marketing company, and official newspaper, the Altamont Enterprise. Was there any discussion about any of those items? Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the insurance broker, auditor, and official newspaper?
I make the motion.
Excuse me,
Marina?
of Marina? Okay, thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Another? All in favor of
The discussion.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just had a question. What is entailed by being named the official newspaper of the library?
All I know is it's something you're supposed to do. So,
all right.
A secret handshake.
If we ever needed to put a notice. in.
yeah, that's where, yep, that's exact, it's your source you're gonna use for
For
official
noticing
notices.
meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. It
Yeah.
sounds very prestigious. So.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion for the insurance brokers, auditors, and official newspaper? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? This is at 6:16. And then we have authorizations. Which are as follows: the petty cash fund of $450 is established. The fiscal officer and the library director are authorized to enter into an agreement with NBT Bank and our Broadview Federal Credit Union and its associated divisions for electronic transfers of funds between library accounts. The board authorizes payment of some time-sensitive bills by hand-drawn check. Let me see, there probably are. Are the motions and the authorizations different?
They appear to be,
They pretty good.
they appear to be different.
Okay, all right. So the authorizations, as stated, is there a motion to approve these state authorizations as stated?
So moved, Cory.
Lori, second,
Marina?
right? Is there any discussion or questions about these authorizations? Hearing none. All in favor of the authorizations, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, it passed at 6:17. Okay. Then we have annual resolution. So we are the first one is a motion to accept the resolution that the board shall approve claims prior to payment in accordance with the claims approval procedure of the library, and that such approval shall be documented in board minutes. Claims for public utility services, freight and express, payroll, postage, and associated expenses, and certain other expenses may be paid upon approval of the director or assistant director prior to the approval by the board. All such claims shall be presented at the next regularly scheduled board meeting for audit and approval by the board. This resolution shall be effective immediately. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution? Mike? A second? Got a second? Corey. Okay. Is there any, are there any questions and discussions about this motion? For, and what is the, annual resolution? The first one. Hearing none, all in favor of this
I'm
motion?
sorry, was there a question as to two comments? Did you say that? I didn't hear it. Is there, can someone talk about why we're doing that?
According to the lawyer, we are required to pass these two resolutions every year. The purpose of the first one is to avoid late payment charges that would accrue if we paid a bill without board approval. And that's really the purpose of the second one as well. She provided this language to us 6 or 7 years ago, and says that for the board to function, for the fiscal office and me or Natalie to sign a check, these are the authorizations that you give us to do that. And then you review them at the board meeting on the check register. So.
Okay. All right, well, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of accepting this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right, passes at 6:20. The second resolution is motion to accept the resolution that to the extent permitted by law and regulation for any month in which no meeting of the trustees is scheduled to occur, the board delegates its authority to the president or other officer to audit and approve payment of those claims for which costs will be incurred as a result of payment in an untimely manner. All such claims shall be presented at the next regularly scheduled board meeting for audit and approval by the board. This resolution shall be effective immediately. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution? Mike? Second?
Marina?
All right, any questions or discussion about this resolution?
It just, I know we've approved this in the past, but this allows, when the board doesn't meet, an officer to sign the checks. So I just want to point out that the treasurer is an officer pursuant to the bylaws. And this means that the treasurer would be empowered to sign the checks. I just wanted to point that out. I don't have a problem with that, but
But the treasurer is not an authorized signatory at
That's
the bank, which would require board approval, so that would.
okay, just wanted to point it out.
I don't think, yeah,
I don't think
that's a
he
good
is.
point.
Yeah, he shouldn't.
No,
The board officers are all, president, vice president, and secretary are all authorized signatories to.
Yeah, but by definition in the bylaws, the treasurer is an officer, even though he's not a member or she's not a member of the
Oh,
board. That was my only point.
Okay.
It's a good and interesting point, and also that Natalie is authorized as well.
So it probably implies officers that are authorized signatories, though it doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that, and I don't think it's implied.
And that, if I remember right, we have the
Because
same.
it's a
three
term of art, and the
officers.
bylaws
That was kind of.
say.
We have the three,
How
yeah,
can they
so
sign
we
if
don't,
they're
we
not
won't
We don't
need
need to
to,
change that.
to change any signatories, like I said,
I was working on
that's
that
handy.
item.
Okay,
Do we-
Okay. I mean, if we wanted to modify it to make that, like, we could, where it says the president or other officer, we could say the president or other trustee officer, and that would clarify that it only included the, like, the secretary.
okay. So we add that.
I don't see why not, although doesn't that contradict what the bylaws say?
Does it?
Oh, no, it doesn't contradict because it clarifies but doesn't contradict.
Because the treasurer can't be.
It doesn't, in the signatory. Okay,
Okay, so that's
all right, with that
Clear
clarification,
that up, Mike. And clear that up.
are there any other questions or discussion on this, this resolution? Okay, all in favor of accepting the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right. 624. I think we have annual reports, and I think there was a couple. I don't think I submitted one for mine. The board
Yeah, and it's multi-policy committee.
yeah, the board development. I just would just give a very brief report on that we met twice. I think we met 2 or 3 times, and we met once with Tim. Had a discussion about some potential board activities, and we hadn't really gotten very far with that because it's hard to schedule with people. But I think there have been a number of emails about different seminars and things that are virtual or in person. And I know that we have to have 2 hours this year, so it should be relatively easy to get online or in person at these UHLS seminars. So
they trick you though, because so many of theirs are 90 minutes, meaning that you kind of have to do 2 of them.
well, yeah, but I mean, it's not, it doesn't seem too onerous, but I mean, I think we're still worth thinking of scheduling something for the board, so. Anyway, did you have a report on it?
Yeah, but did we skip the annual policies discussion?
Oh,
I mean, I
yeah.
know there's no action.
Well, yes, that's true. We all need to sign our annual policies. Yeah, we have, yes. We have 3 annual policies. There's,
Whistleblower and sexual harassment,
right,
which is maybe now called harassment. So,
I think it's just ethics, conflict of interest, and whistleblower.
yes. Jenna has some questions. Find our problems.
it sure would make life easier to get all of them signed at once.
Or I will once you get.
But to your question, was not able to submit a policies annual report. I will just say that the policies committee initiated some work and update on existing policies. The last we were discussing was around library use. And so for the upcoming year, it will be important for the policies committee to revisit that. I did have actually 2 inquiries out to our attorney that went unanswered, so some follow-up there is needed. We were seeking some legal advice and perspective, so I pass that on to the next chair.
All the other annual reports are attached.
Kathy, the long-range planning, you want to do that next?
Did you submit a report? I guess not.
No,
Okay,
it's-
sure.
It's very similar to the last month's report that we developed a mission statement and got stymied a little bit because we were in contract negotiations and the staff did not want to participate. And it's essential that they participate with the board and the community. And so this coming year, we don't have anything hanging over our heads, so we should make some good progress.
Okay. Is there any other further business for the annual meeting? Is there a motion to adjourn the annual meeting? Motion. Maureen? Is there a second?
Second, Cory.
All right, all in favor of adjourning the annual meeting? Please signify.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right, 6:28. All right, so moving right along. We'll call the monthly business meeting to order. The brief pledge.
Why not?
It says that on
There you
the
go.
agenda.
Yeah, follow me. Ooh, look at that.
To the flag.
It's America to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Right. All right, so we have the first order of business, the approval of the minutes on June 15th, 2023. I think we have one abstention. And then, will I have a motion to approve the minutes from June 15th, 2023?
I'll make a motion.
Marcia?
I'll second.
Give it to Barbara. Okay. Okay, any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from June 15th, 2023, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Vanessa, just an abstention.
Right. Yeah. All right, passes with one abstention and 6:30. Now we have, approval of some more minutes. The special meeting from June 28th, 2023. I believe there were a couple of abstentions. What is that? To, Marcia and Vanessa. So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting from June 28th, 2023? That's approved. Rita, okay. And is there a second? Second, Cory. Okay. And noting the abstentions, do I have any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of the special meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, passes 6:32. Is there any public input?
I have not received any public input.
Okay. See. Personnel action.
I'm sure they're there somewhere.
Yeah. All right, we have, personnel actions, to approve the appointments of Natalie Desso, part-time library PH in the Circulation and Collection Services Department effective July 12th. and Abigail Messick, part-time library page in the Circulation and Collection Services Department, effective July 13th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the personal actions, so it's still stated?
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Third. We have now the treasurer's report for June 2023.
All right, good evening. First of all, I guess I should apologize. I've missed the last two meetings. We were traveling, one nice trip and one not so nice trip. But it's nice to be back and not be wearing a mask and all kinds of other things. And we're going to take a look at the financial statements. These are the June statements, so they're the end of the year, and we can get an idea of how we did for the year. And I'm going to do it backwards from what I usually do and start with the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position, which is on the back of the sheet. Of course, goes the other one. So I'm going to look mostly at the year-to-date numbers, and as you look down, the tax levy, obviously we collected the tax levy. That was offset by about $108,000 in refunds that had to go back. Last year we had refunds of $95,695. So far we've been running right around $100,000 a year. I think there's a lot of outstanding ones regarding cross gates, so we may see something larger this year. And the adjustment by town assessor, when they prepare the tax bills, there's always little adjustments, probably just rounding errors and everything. So there's a $604 difference. The grants we talked about before, there was no budget for it. And I said, if we budgeted for it, we probably wouldn't have gotten it. So hopefully we didn't budget for it this year. I can't remember, to be honest. All other revenue was much higher than our budget. It was $57,428, which actually was also higher than last year. Last year ran about $29,203. So we did budget a very conservative number, and I guess I would say the changes are that we did pick up passport fees this year of almost $15,000. And we picked up some contributions from the Guilderland Library Foundation of about $8,100. So that's almost $23,000, which is the difference from last year. The other ones are just some miscellaneous revenue. There still are fine revenue. I guess they're just the old ones. Although I think it actually went up this year, which was unusual. But so at the end of the day, you know, we did have to pay back the $108,000, but it was offset by about $50,000 in all other revenue that was favorable to budget. Looking at expenses, I guess I thought it was interesting that when you look at all of the expenses and the variances, first of all, I guess library materials went up significantly in June, and we've said all along the year that, you know, it's just a timing thing. So we did end up a little favorable in that, although it was unfavorable for the line. But when you look at all the differences, we were $370,000 favorable. Of that, salaries and wages and fringe benefits accounted for about $95,000. And the budget, the tax levy line that we put in as capital improvements was about $270,000, which I think was really designed. I wasn't here when this budget was prepared, but to cover some of the things like, you know, the refunds and other potential paybacks. So the combination of those two are $365,000. So everything else netted out to within $4,600, which, you know, I think is good. We've talked about, you know, the utilities being over budget, and I think that we made up for that in this year's budget. But I think that's very good that everything else is close. And I think salaries and wages, there were some positions that didn't get filled right away and some open positions and just the regular turnover. So for the year, on what I'm going to call a modified cash basis, there was a change in that position, excess of revenues over expenses of 377,934. And, I don't think anything there should be a surprise, I guess, because we've been looking at it as we've gone along. Looking to the balance sheet, I guess I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. So when you look at our net position, and I can't remember if I told this board or somebody else I work with, net position, really, accountants aren't particularly creative, and net position are really net assets, and it's just the difference between assets and liabilities. So, and that's net assets. And it did go up by 377,934 from last year. So line 26, we have net assets of that much more. When you look at the individual lines, when you start at the top, cash and cash equivalents, when I first looked at it, I said, oh my gosh, cash is down almost $1.2 million. And then I remembered that that was a good thing because we did make a decision, I can't remember what month, October, November, December, one of those, to take 1.5 million out of cash that was earning 0% interest and put it into short-term investments. So short-term investments went up. And I think that the good news, and I forgot to mention it on the other page, was that non-operating revenue interest was 57,942 versus a budget of 3,000. And I think last year, the actual number was really low. So that also helped to offset the refunds that we had to pay. And that was at least partially driven by, the tax levies being invested, as well as that change in the 1.5 million. The grants receivable, we did have grants last year that weren't collected, so they were collected and are no longer on our balance sheet. Our liabilities are down a little bit. Primarily, the biggest thing is the due to Guilderland Central School District. And that's still, it's really, nothing has been repaid. It's just accounting entries to account for the building project. So I think those are the remarkable things on the statement of net position. I would say, just in case anyone asks, we're still showing internal numbers for 6/30/2022. And at this point, the auditors and management are still working on finalizing the statements. There's a couple little holdups, but I hope that, soon, by soon, soon to me would be a week. So I'll say in the near future, within the next couple of months, we are able to present them to the finance committee and the audit committee, and then back to the board and approve that. And at that point, we will update the prior year numbers to reflect that. But of course, the next financial statements we present will have 6/30/2023 as the baseline. So I guess those will really never get updated. So I think that's it. If there's questions about the financial statements.
What's holding up your audit?
It was really a long process of accounting for the building project and making the entries and getting that. And then the fact that and part of that was just, it took a long while for us to realize, I think, that we had to do all the adjustments for the building project. And then I think that the change in the fiscal management didn't help, because when Tim left, I think we were pretty close then, but I think, getting a new person up and everything takes a little while, and everything involved in that. So
We expect to get a clean.
yes, I see no reason why we would not. And I think I said it before, when I looked at the numbers from year end change very little to the audit, except the things that the auditors look at, like the net pension asset and changes in the vacation accrual and certain other things, post-retirement benefits that only get looked at once a year. But, I think for that reason, and I have not heard of any reason why we won't get an unmodified clean
Thanks.
audit opinion.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just had a question on the statement of revenue expenses and changes in net position side.
Yep.
Can you just repeat, what is the difference? What year is the year to, what is the date for the year to date?
So the year to date is the 12 months ending June 30th, 2023.
And how does that differ from June 20? That's just the,
June, the left three columns are the month only,
got it.
and then the right are the 12 months. I would be better to write, well, I wouldn't be better to write 12 months because every other month, but yeah, it is the
So it's the
12
year end
months.
versus the single month,
Yes, yeah.
the fiscal years.
And I guess, you look at a single month and, I remember working someplace and we were having some issues and we had one good month and it's like, oh, everybody was happy. And
Yeah.
1 month a trend doesn't make, I
Yeah.
guess. So when you look at the year, I think it's a more representative of how we're doing.
Sure. And then the change in net position, that's from June 30,
It's for the
2022 to
12 months.
from the beginning to the end.
Yes,
So, okay, so July 1st.
July 1st to June 30th. And it always looks odd because, for example, in the month of June, we lost 283,000. And the reason for that is, in theory, the tax levy comes in a couple of chunks of 4.1 million. And if we were doing accrual basis financial statements, we would take whatever 1/12 of that is 323,000, and every month we'd have that revenue. But it's unusual because it comes in. So it's something that I struggled with at first because I wasn't sure. So, and I said earlier, they were modified cash basis. So, and one of the reasons is, when the revenue comes in, that's when it gets recorded. When we pay the pension liability, you get a huge expense there. There's months that have 2 payrolls and there's 2 months that have 3 payrolls, and all of a sudden it jumps up. But I think the other reason I said that is this, I think, is a good comparison to our tax levy because our tax levy is set up to cover our expenses. And if we had capital improvements, but when we go through the audit, there'll be depreciation, but it's a non-cash entry because we've already paid for things. And there'll be changes in the vacation liability, but we won't pay that unless somebody does leave, and the post-retirement benefits. So,
Okay,
But-
and then the bottom line,
yep.
what does that effectively mean? That there was a positive net position of $377,000?
It means that our revenue was that much higher than our expenses. So in theory, we have that much more cash and investments at the end of the year.
It only gets invested? It can't go into the next, I guess what happens to it?
Well, it wouldn't cross between years. It's like so it sort of shows up on line 26 of the balance sheet as, that's the difference between assets and liabilities. So last year it was 5.4 and this year it's 5.8.
But that money basically rolls into the fund balance. And so that's right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
basically in our
It's not
reserves.
budgeted, it's the
Right.
reserve.
So that's just,
Yeah.
so that
Is it
300,
invested?
It is 3.2 million of it's invested. 1.1 as of June is sitting in cash. I didn't say, I think that we've done better on our investments. I think there's still room for improvement. $1 million in cash is a lot. That, we could potentially invest that and do even better on the interest. And I think eventually, the finance committee, and I missed a couple of meetings, but I think they are looking at designating some of the fund balance, to be used for certain things, and they would be board decisions and.
I like that when you say fund balance, sometimes it sounds like fund balance.
Well, this is all fun.
So
It's like,
yeah.
That's a pretty significant addition to that. I mean, is that that's not usually the amount that gets added?
I think it was very
Oh.
similar last year.
It's been several $100,000, like typically in like the last few years.
Do we know the current balance of the fund balance? With this, 377 in it? Like, what does it bring it to?
So in total, we have $5.8 million in fund balance, which is the $9.1 million in our assets, offset by about $3 million in liabilities. Accountants are very mathematical, you know, we don't do anything original, it's just you subtract numbers and do
If you're
things. But
interested in discussing restrictions that the finance committee is looking at for some of that money, it's come to the finance committee meeting.
we should probably plug that, we should offer food or something to encourage people.
That's, we were also working on the investment policy.
Yeah,
So
that's
in
true.
the, in the policy committee, we just didn't complete it.
It's the
It
new-
was you and I and,
Which you're the new
right. yeah, so
policy
I-
committee chair, so.
Because we,
No, I'm not.
yeah,
No.
No, I am.
Oh,
We don't even look.
so the other things that we're supposed to look at are, and I apologize, I thought that I had sent the investment report this morning and it wasn't on the email, and I was about to run home and resend it, and I realized I had a hard copy that you made a copy of. So a late addition to the package is the investment report, and it really just, you know, the numbers are the same as the balance sheet, but it shows the investments that we have. You know, the interest rates on the investments that we made before going back to December were about 4.65% that we're earning. There are 3 treasury bills, and I think that so the 1.5 million-ish that was invested were in US Treasury bills and a US Treasury note. One is coming up for maturity in less than a month on 8/10. So I think that we're going to have to sort of think about if we're just going to roll that over or whatever, but we'll have that for the next meeting. And there's copies of at least the cover sheets of all the investment statements, and I look at it. And the thing, I didn't say it before, but if anyone tries to talk you into having the treasurer as an authorized signer, it would be a very bad idea, because their responsibility is to look at things, and it would be a real conflict of interest if you had signatory authority. I just made that same speech to the fire department. So it's like, so that's the investment, and the check register. I did come in maybe an hour early and look at the backup for the different checks, and you know, I think that everything is properly supported and appropriate. If there's questions on things, I may not be able to answer every one, but David or Tim probably can.
All right, is there a motion for, to pay the check register for July 2023?
So moved.
Cory. Is there a second? Marcia? Okay, are there any questions or any discussion on this check register? Any questions for Tim? Anybody? Hearing no. Question, all in favor of approving the check register for July 2023, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? All right, passes at 6:51. And the regulars.
What's that, Barbara? Okay. Director's report. The major things I've worked on in the last month are finalizing the cafe preparation, and it is 100% physically ready to go. All their employees have been hired. They have requested a health inspection from the county and hope that they get that as early as next week. Just to revisit, they plan to do an unannounced soft opening, but I will certainly let the staff board and foundation know that that's happening. There's a slight chance it could happen while I'm out of town until Wednesday, in which case I wouldn't be notified if I wouldn't know myself. And then some, you know, more formal sort of grand opening for them when they have ironed out kinks and so forth. I also worked a lot on the baseball exhibit that we hosted throughout the library. Very good public feedback from that, and I held 3 public programs from it. It was, if you walked around the entire library and looked at all of it, a little bit over the top. But it showed us some ways to use our spaces that are all new that we had not contemplated before, so that was good. We worked an awful lot on updating the memorandum of agreement with Lauren Vincent, who's running the circulation department and doing a great job. Trying to fill positions and working on updating our safety procedures. Our staff development day was fantastic. Natalie had the great idea to, in essence, participate in the library expedition. We chartered a bus. We went to Schaghticoke, Valley Falls, East Greenbush, Castleton, and Troy. As Luann put it in her report, we had lots of enrichment by seeing what these other libraries are doing and talking to their staffs, and a lot of camaraderie or team building, which is one of the points of those kinds of things. And just today, the expedition, which is about to wind down, its 30,000th library visit across the 29 libraries. As of Lauren's report, we had last week 1,005 of those 30,000 visits at this library. We did have with the safety committee a meeting with the police chief and one of the community engagement officers, and we're working on a pattern of staff development events that will likely take place before we open on various days to, kind of drill the staff. That's maybe not quite the right word. Inform the staff of what police procedure would be in the event of certain bad things happening. So we're renewing that element of safety. Here comes the thunderstorm. We are having some hiring difficulties, which are described very well in Natalie's report. I would urge you to take a look at that if you haven't. It's something that we'll probably need to take up at the personnel committee level. In fact, I see in my notes that I want to actually go to that paragraph by Natalie. Which says, while the Personnel Committee last year did a fantastic job of getting our base rates to a respectable level, other libraries have the ability to offer experienced new hires at a higher salary rate than base. In other words, they hire in step systems or in ranges, and we don't really do that. So even though we did all that good work and we're briefly competitive, we're now losing people by $3 an hour, $5 an hour. That's how fast this market is moving. So as she says, labor management also needs to meet and discuss background checks and performance evaluations. So thank you, Natalie, for that. She also mentions in her report that we would love to have one or more board volunteers for Guilderland Night Out on August 1st. I'll be out of town, so I can't, I'm not a board member, but I can't help you with that. I do want to thank the trustees collectively for their great response to the UHLS dinner, trustees and staff members for being part of our participation in the Pride Parade and for button making for the summer reading program. All of these, I think, good programs that Natalie is looking for opportunities to bring the board a little bit into the operations to kind of give you a window of what we're doing, and I really support that. Wish it had been my idea, but it was Natalie's. So the swag, Luann, I'm kind of calling on you without having mentioned, but is the swag store still open and the board and the board's received an email that they can?
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully you've all been able to access it if you tried.
Mhm. So Luann has put together, a product line of polo shirts and sweaters and jackets and hats and so forth through an online company. And the foundation was kind enough to earmark $50 for each staff member to receive one or more swag items. The foundation was not kind enough to earmark that for you. So if you wish to sport some Guilderland Public Library swag, and you no longer have the link, just ask Luann and she'll send you the link out. Is there a deadline on it, Luann?
I was giving people, I think I said actually last Friday, but I was giving a little more time.
Okay.
People people being on vacation, so
Okay.
I'll take another look at it. Oh,
do it
absolutely.
tonight.
Yeah, and I'll send a reminder email too, so
Cool.
I'll do that tomorrow.
So once again, Luann's open rate on our communications has gone up by another 1% to 55% or 15%. Not that, I'm not saying that right. The industry average is 40% and ours is 55%. So that's excellent. I took a photograph of a lovely mother and daughter reading to each other in the library. And Luann was able to get it not just into the enterprise, but into the Your Best Shot feature of the Albany Times Union. So the mother was pleasantly surprised, and she got the news by text in Saudi Arabia. So saving a copy of the paper for when she gets back. Jackie's report is very concise and it is loaded with good information. So I'm glad we're having our fiscal officer do a monthly report, which is something that has occurred to us with Tim Riley. And so hopefully we will have stability in that position and keep you guys posted. She's got a lot on her plate. And some of the new contracts that we agreed to have some complicated provisions that need to be worked into the payroll system. So that's kind of a main focus right now that contributes to the concern about closing the audit and things like that, is that some work is extremely imminent, and we're just working on that prioritization of what has to get done when. So circulation report, the circ this month is up month over month, meaning June this year over June last year, and also full year over full year. So that's fantastic. Our circulation, I found it interesting this month that adult books and children's books are exactly tied at 36% of circulation each. And I always like to mention audio-visual holdings, this big collection of DVDs and smaller collection of CDs. Many people consider those to be outmoded technologies, but they are still 24% of our circulation. A lot of people who, we all have a different outlook, but I'll do 1 or 2 streaming services, but I am not doing 8 or 9, and typically with older movies, you can find them here more easily than you can find through streaming services. So that's kind of neat. This is stunning to me, but 70% of our circulation last month was via the self-check machines. That's a new high. Kids love the self-check machines because they feel like they're part of the process. And then I apologize if I told this very quick story before, but it'll be, if I did, it'll be just as good this time. But the automatic return system, the kids love to use that so much that I actually saw, I did say, okay, so people checked out books and they're on their way out of the building and the kids are trying to return the book they just checked out. And the parents are like, oh, it doesn't work that way. We have 588 more active users this month than we did in June of 2019. So I think that's a good sign that we have recovered to better than pre-pandemic levels, which we should be at better than pre-pandemic levels because we have a larger, more capable facility. Jill Tomanowski in the PPS department has us engaged in a national library pen pal project, a little bit low tech, but kind of fun. And I thought worth mentioning. One of the big successes of the month of June was the baby chicks, the eggs at the youth reference desk, and the kids would come in and rotate the eggs according to the schedule and so forth. And it's a great engagement experience. The kickoff festivities for both the youth and the adult summer reading programs went very, very well. Thanks again to those board members who made buttons for us. And then I particularly want to mention something going on in the youth department that's new under our new youth department department head, Brianna Wackowitz. And I'm just going to read from her report. So we're working with Joe Burke, the director at the Altamont Free Library, and Katie Barker, the literacy coach at the Guilderland Central School District, to launch the Summer Reading Buddies program here at GPL. So for 2 years, Katie Barker and Joe Burke have been working with students from Altamont School to have one-on-one mentor relationships with National Honor Society high school students, where they're reading books together and reflecting on them over the summer. And we thought that was a very successful effort over there, so we're bringing it over here. We have something like 25 pairs of National Honor Society students and students who've been referred because it would be helpful for them to keep their reading up over the summertime. So we thank Joe and Katie and Brianna for doing that. We had 248 scavenger hunt participants in the youth department this week or this month. And the English as a new language night out, plus offsite books discussions, homebound book delivery, English as a second language teaching, and participation in the Pride Parade were all activities coordinated by our new outreach department headed up by Maria Buell. Our IT department, in addition to their regular IT work, Sean, who's over here in the light blue shirt, has been doing an awful lot of programming, voter safety course. I believe there was a hunter safety course, although that wasn't this month, I don't think. The fishing pole collection is flying off the shelves, and we are experimenting with circulating life jackets for people who are doing boating or boating training. So that's kind of interesting. And then in the maintenance department, right over by that pillar, in fact, if you're sitting where I am, you can see a white stripe down along that pillar. So ever since the renovation, we've been working on what is causing water to come down that pillar. And at first we had a problem with the roof. That problem has been fixed. Then the roofing company recommended that we look at our skylights, which were built in 1992. The skylight company came out and said they're in great shape. They initially, when we did the construction project, the very first phase of it was called the building envelope project, so to tighten up the exteriors of the building. And you know, that was 7 years ago when we started that building project. So I had to get back in touch with the architect and say, did we seal the skylights in 7 years ago? And she said, no, we advised you at that time that they were still good. So we had a few days here this last month where we thought we were going to have to recommend a project to reseal these 1992 skylights. But then when the company came out, they said, no, they're in good shape. But that's not the source of your leak. So we think, you know, we're waiting for more water to come in to see if we can find out any other cause. So
It's raining.
yeah, it is raining. But at any rate, we've been busy on that. And then we installed hot water heaters that drive the cafe operation, and also the putting a fish tank in a library building is not something that happens very often. So I'm going to cut the architects some slack, but we were using tankless water heaters in both cases, and they need to be large tank water heaters because the guy who does the maintenance on the fish tank would have to do it over a 4 or 5 hour period for the tankless to keep recharging. And so he's bringing in water at the wrong temperatures and stressing the fish over 4 or 5 hours. But now that we've corrected the water heater situation, the service takes about 45 minutes and can bring in. And the same is true. You need a lot more on-demand hot water to run a cafe. And so that is my report on what's going on around here.
Any questions for Tim?
Very thorough.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we have old business, term length for trustees. I would just note that, to actually, do the resolution to change the term length, takes a three-fourths of the board, which is more than 8, so we've interpreted it as 9. We had this discussion that so, you know, because we have to have 3/4 of 11. So I don't think we have enough trustees at this meeting to actually pass the resolution, but we can certainly talk about it. It's something that a prior board voted to do. A few years ago. It was during the pandemic, and it was when we were all virtual. And there was, at that time, I think it was, it was stressful, obviously, for everyone. And I think there were some resignations, and we ended up having two, we had, at one time, we had 9 people instead of 11. And appointed 2 more, but there was some discussion about should we have the board just be 9 people instead of 11 people? I remember, like, or then remember that, and it was voted to not stay as 9, but then it was voted to change the terms of office to 3 years out instead of 5. Anyone who has a 5-year term would still have a 5-year term, but if we have enough people to do it, if the board wants to do this, we have to start the process, and it would, once, I think, if you looked at the emails that the back and forth on the procedure, it was, once it was done, it was effective immediately. So the thought was not to do it right before the election, because then it would suddenly change the term of office right before the election, which seemed less than ideal because people were doing petitions based on a 5-year term. So that was why it was postponed till now. But I don't think we have enough people to actually do it, but I think it might be a discussion to have as like if the board wants to do it from a 5-year term to a 3-year term. And because it's an 11-member board, I think eventually, like, you'd have to have like 4 people elected, if you have, everyone has a 3-year term, because of, in the school board, it works well because it's a 9-member board. Three trustees are up for election every year, and then they have 3-year terms. So with an 11-member board, it's a little more complicated, but not, I mean, so, so I think at some point, we'd have to elect 4, so.
So, and this, I had brought that issue up when we discussed this a while back. Right now, if we enact this, so it comes into effect for the next year's election, then we're going to, so right now we have a 5-year cycle where 4 years, 2 people are elected, and 1 year, 3 people. To keep the 11-member board. If we enact this for the next election, just the way things fall, we're going to be on a 3-year cycle where there's 5 people 1 year, 4 people another year, and only 2 people the 3rd year, and it's very lopsided. I don't know what the logistics are of how we would fix that somehow and reshift terms so that it could be more even, like 3 to make the 11, something like that. But right now, if we enact it as is and it comes into effect before next year's election, we're going to have 5, 4, and 3, or 5, 4, and 2 as the 3-year cycle of things because of the way the current staggered terms will line up once you switch them over to 3-year terms.
So,
Sorry, if we enact this and go to 3 and then also vote later on, say, to reduce the number and that passes, does that alleviate that?
It would give us maybe a little, so my understanding from when we had all these discussions back before was that if the move from 11-member board, if we wanted to reduce it down to a 9-member board, that's something we could do with a bylaw change where we don't have to go through the state,
Right.
everything. So we could do that as, a 2-step thing. First, enact this, change it to a 3-year term, and then step 2, vote to change our bylaws and reduce it down to 9. And we could do, I guess, when we did that, if we designated which years the positions were going to come out of, maybe we could kind of shift it in the process and kind of make it line up so it was 3 each year. I mean, right now, something would have to be moved. There'd have to be a short term or something to make everything work. Because there's 1 year where in our 3 cycle where there's only 2 people that are gonna be elected. So it's not just cutting a couple positions out. Something's gotta be moved, so it's in a different year. So we'd have to have a short term or something to get things back lined up. It's not like, you know, there must be some way to do it, but it's not gonna be super straightforward.
But that would only happen one time.
Yeah, I guess, you know, if somehow, I don't know how that's done logistically, create for in one cycle. You know, suppose so right now we have like 5, 4, and 3, it's, you know, and, you know, so whenever we wanted to put it into effect, we'd be cutting out 2 of those positions. And then one of those, we'd have to somehow do like a short term to bump it to another year in the cycle, like do a 1 or 2 year term, whatever it would take to move it to the year where there's only 2 up for election. I don't know logistically exactly how you do that, but there must be some way to do it, I would
Well,
think.
when one of them comes up for position, we would just shorten this term, right?
I guess,
Vote to do that, maybe?
I guess maybe, uh,
It sounds complicated to shorten terms, so, because like we had a lot of resignations at one point, and then so people were doing 1 year terms, 3 year
Yeah.
terms, you know, I mean, they were just filling out the terms of the
Right.
people that resigned, so I don't know if we could just designate somebody to run for a shorter term because.
well, maybe, and I think maybe the way, I'm just thinking out loud here, but it would be that if we did a bylaw change, this is assuming that we're gonna do the move to shift down to 9 people. We did a bylaw change where we designated that it was gonna shift to a 9-member board with 3 coming up for election each year with a provision that I mean, I guess, you know, the existing terms would have to probably be grandfathered in somehow so that you're not cutting
Well,
anyone
I
out.
think the first
But-
time we
but
thought
then-
about 9-member board, we were down to members, and now we have an 11-member board, so, we have you know, everybody's like knock on wood, they're going to resign in it, so, you know, it's, you know, I mean, I think part of it, like, was the pandemic and being always on only virtual, it was difficult, I think, but, so I don't know, I mean, I don't know the math of these
Yeah.
terms, so.
Well, so,
We have to start.
Yeah.
If we're on
Kathy?
this process, we
Yeah.
should start it. Because it is the first meeting of the year, so if the process takes
Yeah.
longer, we could possibly have a solution.
And I'll also just say that 5 years is a really long term.
Yeah.
Right? And so I know there's a lot of interest in sort of balancing and keeping things balanced, but we've had times where it's been imbalanced because with the prospect of a 5-year term, people inevitably resign before the end of it. And so you have off-cycle elections anyway. So I know the year that we were elected, there were 4 of us that came in. I ended up with a 5-year term. And I remember thinking, my son's in 8th grade and he's going to be going to college when I'm done with this, right? And it makes it hard to be, I think, fully committed and invested with such a length of term. That's just
Also,
my
I think it's
perspective.
important to have change.
I agree.
I think to make way for new people. You know, I happen to like this board very much. I think we work well together.
This board likes you too.
yeah, so,
But I do think that 3 years is enough time for someone to serve and give other people in the community that are interested in serving as well. So I also would like to reopen the bylaw change. I wasn't present for that meeting when you discussed changing the number of the trustees and also the length of time, but it would only take a bylaw change to change the number of trustees. That's it. You know, right now, the bylaws say not more than 11 and not less than 5.
What was the change that would require a charter change?
That's the
The term
number of years you can serve.
Yeah, and I don't think we have enough people,
For,
because,
for this, because we
Yeah.
need 9.
because we need one more
Right,
person.
and we don't
I
have,
think,
yeah, so
you
we
know,
can't
we
vote
need-
on that today.
right, but I think it sounds like,
But if
there's a
I
lot of
were-
interest in doing it because, it is a long term, like if you serve 2 5-year terms, you're here for 10 years,
Yeah.
you know, so. I
So
mean,
if it's,
that's a
how
good.
does it work right now? Don't they have 2-year, 3-year, no, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year terms?
No,
No,
it's
no,
just
no,
because.
that was
some
just
of
because I
the
was part
That was because of the resignation.
It's all fine, yeah.
People fulfill the unexpired
But that's
term.
kind of the point. The reason you don't realize that is because people aren't really making it the
Right.
full 5 years to then have up for election a 5-year term. So it's the balance of the term that's left.
Yeah,
that's
it was an
going on.
unusual situation.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, it was complicated. It was kind of a complicated situation. The like some extent.
Staggered terms, create more issues, or like if you said, instead of shortening them to 3, you could shorten to other possibilities depending on the number of votes, kind of like how we did when we got elected. So you would shorten to 2, 3, and 4 depending on the number of votes.
That's just gonna count. I mean, that makes it really
I will
hard.
say though, when the
So-
board first formed, right? And I mean, conceptually, everyone had the same length of term and it wasn't perceived as an issue that the whole board would turn over at the same time, right? I mean, we might be overcomplicating this and
I
that,
think we were.
We always do that. Well,
Okay, so
We do that
I'm
with everything.
doing some calculations here, and the way to do it to not make it awkward is to make both these changes at once. So if they both go into effect, a 3-year term plus a 9-member board next year is the only year that's weird. We only have one person that we're electing. And then it goes into after that, there would be 2 positions that we're electing. And then 2, and then 3, and then we should cycle back to us.
and does that account for the people phasing out to
Yes.
reduce the number?
Yeah, but so there's 3 people that's terms end at the end of next year. Kathy, Mike, Barbara. There would only be one of those slots that's open. That's what would happen. So I mean, like those are the 3 people that have the most skin in the game. But after 1 year of a cycle, if we made both changes at the same time, it would rotate after 3 years back into being a 3-3-3.
So reduce the number of
no,
trustees.
it'll be 3-4-2.
Which is also okay. I mean,
Oh. Oh, you're right. So in the 2028, we would be 4, and in 2029, we would be 2. So yeah, 3-4-2.
I think it's still
Well,
okay. I don't know why we're.
It is what it is. I think that we should decide what we want to do and then figure out how to do it. So, and I like your idea about if the board wants to reduce the number of trustees.
Does this
Yes.
have to pass though through the regions first?
I'm sorry?
Does this, if we approve this at the next meeting, it has to pass through regions
It
first?
has to go through, right?
So once we get approval from regions, then
Then
we
we
can
can pass
propose
it,
the
yeah.
number.
It only has to go through, as I
Only one
see
of
this,
them has to
only
go
one of them has to go through.
Right, right.
Only the
I think
The length of time that you.
Right there.
But we could
Yeah.
approve it pending the approval, right,
Right.
of the trustees, because I think we agree that it's kind of weird if you only do one of them.
Yeah, no, I think Corey's suggestion is a good one. Yeah, that we
Right,
should
but to Narina's point though,
We can't do it
We
today.
can't, we don't have enough people.
understood, but even when we do it, one of them is still contingent on trustee approval, which I don't have any reason to think we wouldn't get it, but we can't assume. And so we can just vote in a way that they both go forward pending
The approval of the region.
assuming we vote to approve it.
And I'm all for this. I think 5 years is the long term. I will say, as having just done this, there is a balance between looking at a 5-year commitment and looking at getting the signatures to get your name on the ballot. And that sounds silly, but I've talked to a number of people who are not willing to get 96 signatures in order to get their name on the ballot. That's what was required this year.
That was unusual. It's
No,
usually not
ours
that
was
much.
unusual. They
Yours was
reduced it
unusual.
because of
Very
COVID.
COVID.
Actually, mine
I
was.
thought it was higher because they had more votes.
The only reason.
No, ours, we've only had 46 or something.
Others 50, yeah, less than 50.
Yeah, they reduced it like yearly and then brought it back up, I guess, during COVID. So now 96 was like the normal number, so it will be around that depending upon. the
No, it's based on the number of people who voted in the
Ah.
last
Yes,
election.
that's what I'm saying.
The
I think,
percentage of them, and there was a lot of people.
That was
who
a
voted
usually high
in
number.
the prior election,
yes,
because it was a very contested school board race.
Yes.
Want to get a.
So-
Oh, that's
Ton of
right.
people.
actually it's in the 50-ish range, but
Or-
ours was.
Apologies.
The
Yeah, but
96.
didn't they
I
also
thought it was
especially
okay.
reduce it for COVID, so
Yeah.
people didn't have to go door to door?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and during
There was a-
COVID,
there
you
was a-
didn't have to
there
get
was a
sick.
reduction.
Oh, we did.
No, it
No,
was.
I didn't.
There was one, yeah.
One
was
year there was
one year
no,
when
one year was
The year we did it,
reduced.
we had a reduced
Yeah,
number of
but-
signatures.
In speaking to some people that would be excellent library trustees,
It's the truth.
it's that commitment of getting signatures that was what turned them off.
But I'm pretty sure this year's turnout was lower, so next year they'll have less signatures.
I think
It was the year
every
prior
race
school board
was
election that,
uncontested this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
So it wasn't,
So it's
wasn't
going
many
back
people
down.
out.
yes, so it'll probably be 50-ish again next year.
Okay,
you were just lucky.
okay. Well, then you can take my comment on the table about that.
So just one last, from me on this whole thing. I'm on the fence about the reduction from 11 to 9. I'm just not sure. I'm kind of on the fence on whether I think that's a good idea. I'm not necessarily sure that it would be good to reduce us down to 9. I know other people have strong opinions the other way, but anyway, but regardless, I think the 5-year to 3-year is a good move either way. So I would be in favor of, as soon as we have the numbers, I would vote in favor of reducing to 3-year terms. I think that's a good move. And, you know, if it's lopsided, maybe we can figure out a way to fix it. Maybe we can't, I don't know. But regardless, I would approve that, and then we can, decide and vote over the reduction if that makes sense or whatever. But either way, even if we are not going to reduce to 9, I think we should still shorten the terms.
So we can keep that on the old business for next time.
Yeah, because we can't vote on this one anyway, the reduction.
Yeah.
What would we need to do to add in, like, do we have to age the proposal to reduce the board size to get it?
We could just wait until that goes through regents and then bring
Yeah.
that back up as a full business to vote on.
Right, but I don't think we want to submit anything to the regents if we haven't voted on it and agreed.
Which size isn't good?
Item-
The
item
board
which
size
part?
isn't good.
Well, I think there, it looks like there's broad agreement on the 5 to 3 change, and that's the only thing that has to go to the regents, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
The
I
other
have it
ones-
switched.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But then just our internal policies, the first time we discuss something, it can't be voted.
For a bylaw change, we gotta give a meeting.
2/3 vote.
We have, right, but we have, we have
Notice.
to present it and then
Yeah.
vote.
Right, and I guess I'm asking if this discussion meets that requirement, because right now it's just the term length that's on there. And if we want to consider them both at the same time for a vote, what do we need to do to get the other on here? Do you see what I'm saying?
Usually it would usually come,
I'm sorry.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Usually it would come from the policy committee.
That would be.
And after there'd been, discussion there, and then the second meeting would be.
One, we're having a very hard time hearing you, Barbara, and I generally would agree that we would have a committee bring something, except for that we've talked about this extensively at the full board level so many times. To me, it would be strange to not allow the board to vote on it and to send it back to committee to come back. So I was just asking what would satisfy the requirement of presenting the proposed change so that it can then appear on the next agenda as an action item.
In answer to your question,
Thank you.
under the bylaws, Article 10 amendments, these bylaws may be repealed, amended, or added to by a vote of 2/3 of the board. And proposed changes must be presented in writing at one board meeting prior to the meeting
Okay.
at which action on such change is to be taken.
Thank you.
And also, I agree with you about having to go through a committee. The board on its own can always do whatever it chooses to do. So you don't have to go through a committee if the board still wants to change the number of trustees.
You'll bring the next change for the number of trustees in writing at the
To the
next meeting.
And then the
And then we
following
can vote on that in August,
September.
September.
Okay. And then, Mike, if, we could discuss it.
So should I go ahead and ask Chris for a resolution, or do we already have the resolution to go from 5 years to 3?
Yeah,
We
have-
do.
have-
Okay.
It's just that
So we need
one
something
more
for
person.
9,
Yeah.
from 11
Yeah, we
to
need the
9.
bylaw
More
change.
trustee.
So we'll just have it in our packet. Hopefully we'll get none.
Right, but we need the other one.
I think it's just changing the number.
We have the other one too.
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
Bylaw change.
Well, no, I just meant the
The
formally.
actual wording.
Yeah, we've
Just
got
to
that.
send it forward. And then we'll have a proper discussion and vote.
All right. We move on to the firefighter property tax exemption.
There was an article in the Enterprise about the school district today, and I tried to cut and paste it for you, but it changed their software. So I took a few quick notes. The school district passed this 8-0. But it can't go into effect until the 24-25 school year based on, something procedural. So if you pass it, that would be the same thing for us. There are about 150 eligible firefighters or EMT personnel because you have to meet certain length of service conditions and so forth. So based on numbers that the school district's finance VP came up with, the benefit to each recipient is around $490. I did speak today with Dave Messer-Cola, who's one of the officials at the Guilderland Fire District, and he was checking in about tonight's meeting and urging you guys to pass it because it's designed to help with both recruitment and retention of volunteer firefighters. The school district's numbers worked out to it costs each taxpayer who is not a firefighter approximately 2 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. So if you have a $230,000 house, it's $4.60 per year. That is a tax increase for you if you're not a firefighter. And, if you have a 400,000 house, you can do the math, But those are the notes I took from the Enterprise article. And then we start at 6, at 5:30, I asked my wife for the board resolution that they passed at the school district, and I have that. It's lengthy. It's a 2-sided sheet, which I then emailed out to the board and brought some print copies. So that's my update on it. I did ask Dave Messer-Cola and my wife Marie what the next step is if after an organization passes it. And nobody seems to know, but Dave said, I think you just tell the town assessor that you passed this law, So if anybody wants to see a copy of the resolution language that the school district used, I've got a bunch of.
We have to have it here.
But that I don't know.
I
So-
think I think we're supposed to set a hearing and we can vote after the hearing.
Okay.
So I would say, I don't know what the time period is, 10 days or something, so we should probably set our hearing for August.
Sure.
That would probably be soon enough, and then, I think following the hearing, say the library should not grant us suspension, that we could vote that evening.
Could we have the hearing prior to or part of the next board meeting, the August board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just have to set it. We have to give notice and,
Okay.
we don't usually have public hearings in this,
Putting in a lot.
so. We don't, we have a public meeting, but not a public hearing, so.
But we need to have
They're
some
different.
numbers.
What's that?
We need to have some information and numbers before.
Right, I was just gonna ask, do we know, I think it's a great idea. I should start by saying that. I think that it would just be helpful to understand the impact to the library budget, just for.
It's
There's
not,
no
no impact on our budget.
It's just an impact for you.
It only impacts
Impact on
taxpayers.
taxpayers.
So then what are we deciding?
We were deciding
because-
whether to,
Tax the
Because
grant the
10% rate.
exemption, as.
So we
as
charge
it-
them less.
For the library tax.
Firefighters get charged less, but then all the other taxpayers pay a little more to make up for the amount that's less for the firefighters. So the net for the library is exactly the same, but it distributes the.
It's
tax.
a really small amount
Yeah.
because.
It's really odd.
We have a
You can make that
$120 million
decision.
budget with the school as opposed to roughly a $4 million budget for the library. So we're not gonna be granting like a ton of tax relief, but
Well, no, I
Because
understood
we're-
that. I
because
just
we're,
wanted to
you
know
know.
what the numbers were.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
still not understanding how we have
It's
the
gonna
authority
cost
to
you
make
about like
a
4
decision
to
for
7
taxpayers to pay
thousand.
more.
we are a
Entity.
taxing entity.
There's a state law that specifically
Did I say-
gives every.
Yeah.
You said 1,000. I'm like,
I got
wait,
that.
what?
I got that. I was under the impression that that rolled up to an amount for the library. Understood. Still weird, but I get
So
it.
what's it gonna cost the taxpayers?
For
2
ours.
cents per 1,000 of assessed value.
Is that for the?
But that was the school.
That's for the
district's
school.
law.
What about the library?
Oh, so it would be.
The library must be
A lot
a really
less.
small amount.
Yeah, a lot. less.
Right, okay, I see,
Because
yeah.
that's $120 million
Yeah.
budget.
So ours,
So-
we'd be 50 cents or
But
40 cents.
That may be, it may be nothing, maybe 0.001.
Yeah, but we should do our due
But we should
diligence and
know
know
at
what
a
it is.
hearing, if a taxpayer says, what's it gonna cost me?
Mhm.
We need to be
I
able
agree.
to say,
So I'll send
this is what it's gonna cost.
Mr. Van Alstine an email and ask for his.
Yeah,
Right.
we should get that information in our packet and
Yeah, I mean,
when we set the hearing and we, so
Sort
we
of
know
how
what's
we
going on.
average
I mean, we don't have to vote on the date of the hearing. We could wait till the next meeting.
right, but
you
we
know.
need to have the information.
Right,
to
so
be
we don't
able to
have,
respond
we don't
to-
have enough information when we have the
How many
hearing.
people testified at the school board hearing, do you know?
No, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. Maybe nobody.
I don't think many.
Bunch of firefighters.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what actually the article said. There
Yeah.
were 2 firefighters in attendance and
Probably one of the fellows who
Anyone
came
else.
that day.
so.
I mean, if a taxpayer comes in and wants to know what's gonna cost them, we need to be
It's a
able to
fair
tell.
question.
I didn't mean that to sound judgmental
So we'll
or
find
anything
that
because I am a
information and,
firefighter, so
give me
it's
a
like.
break.
Volunteer, you volunteer,
Yeah.
where?
No, we're
Sure.
break.
Yes.
You guys do a good job.
I'm unclear who's getting the
Did you
info
do
though.
that?
It's a
Who's gonna do
hearing.
the numbers?
I'm asking the school district what their formula was,
I
so.
can ask,
Yeah, we
what the
use it.
town did too, because
They
they,
did it
they
also.
gave
I
the
think it's
exemption
like
as well, so.
Which
Which was,
once
once again, a lengthy document.
You have to go, they have EMTs.
Yeah.
Alrighty, what's
So-
next?
Okay, so
So next
are you
is
putting the
some-
notice in the Altamont for the hearing
That's
at 6
exactly
o'clock
right.
for August?
I suppose that's how you do it, you know?
Yeah, I think we would have to publish notice of a hearing.
We will just be doing that at the beginning of the board meeting.
Yep. Just.
That's
set it for
usually
6.
the most efficient way of doing it.
What's that, Barbara?
I said that's usually the most efficient way of doing it. I know that's what the school district has done in the past. In other words, if our meeting starts at 6, it would start at 6, or the hearing would start at 6. If a lot of people showed up, then, you know, you listen to them, but then you go into your regular meeting.
So we need to understand the protocol. For instance, do we need minutes? We need someone to do, you know, a hearings that aren't perfect minutes.
Right.
Those we swear people in. I don't know any of the answers.
I'll ask a bunch of people who do public hearings a lot.
I think you do need us in all of
Yeah, I think we do.
All right. So,
We should probably know if the notice is any different from a regular board meeting too. It might be a different amount of time.
yeah, we have to figure out like what is proper notice and what is the way we get the notice.
And we publish it. in
Right,
Maybe put
right.
it more than one
Like I
newspaper.
said, I don't think I don't recall this board ever having a public hearing as opposed to a public meeting, so.
Sometimes it requires more than one publishing in more than one place or
I don't
multiple
know.
publishers in one place.
Well, the enterprise, of course, is a weekly, so you have to, if you're publishing notice in that, you have to like do it, you know, in enough time to put it in the weekly. So I know that, I think the town designates both the enterprise and the Times Union for that reason, because they have to give notice a lot,
Yeah.
and sometimes the notice doesn't
Coincide.
dovetail well with the weekly.
Sometimes, depending on the law, it requires more than one place to publish. And more than one time to publish, but I'm not an expert on this.
I think we have to check on that and figure out how to do it properly. All right. Anything more?
So, but we are setting the meeting and getting the numbers before the meeting, rather than getting the numbers from this. Okay.
All right. So, new business, we just have some. The board meeting dates. So. The only thing that jumps out at me on that calendar is November 21st. It's kind of close to a lot of people's probably holiday trouble or whatever people do around that time of year. So I wasn't sure about that. That kind of, I just noticed that date because it's so late in December. I think the last December meeting we had, maybe the first was on like a Thursday or something, and so we had it earlier in December, so. I don't know if anybody thinks that might not be the best day for a meeting, or it could be. Maybe people don't mind, but that, to me, that would be probably the more point of discussion, whether we wanted that meeting on that date, or we wanted to move it earlier or in December, or what we wanted to do.
Over the years, there have been years where we didn't have a meeting in December, or, unless it was pressing business that you would go about in November to cause the meeting in December, but, it's an alternative also.
Barbara, can you
I-
type in the chat?
I think I got most of that. She said she said in past years, there have been times where we did not have the December meeting, or if there was pressing business, a forum got together to do that. I believe.
Thank
You're
you.
good.
I would just as soon leave it on the, calendar, and if when it's coming up, we decide we don't have anything pressing, it's easier to cancel it than to
Yeah.
get everybody at the
Agreed.
last minute together.
We say every year, so,
I just know, looking at this, I'm gonna be out of town for the August date on here, though I can probably, do the remote thing, as long as we're gonna have forum. And
I'll be out of town too.
Tony.
I almost feel like the August date is in a lot of ways more challenging than the December date.
Historically, the board used to take August and February off every year. The February, I think the theory was that there were some board members that were sort of snowbird travelers. And that's actually one reason why you passed those annual resolutions, to give us the authority to pay things. The argument I made a few years ago when we were going into the renovation project was that we really couldn't be skipping board meetings, but I can't make that argument. So I'm not opposed to 10 annual meetings as opposed to 4 or 11 as opposed to 12.
I think we had 2 people say that they're not here, like you're not here and you're not here either.
No.
So, are we likely to have a quorum?
And Bill may or may not be able to join either. He said he might be able to join virtually, but it's not a given.
So the only thing I'll say is that not the only thing, another thing that I'll say is that we hoped to introduce some language in August so that we could vote in September, and it would delay it. It also is just bringing into reality that we likely won't be able to vote on the term length next time again. So I think that I would be in favor of holding the meeting for who can come so that we can introduce the new language and plan for a robust attendance and participation in September. and some of those other votes, because I think that even though we'll struggle with attendance in August, I happen to be available. It would delay some of the other things that we want to do that would push voting further into the fall.
So as far as the public hearing for the firefighters exemption, if there is a question about getting a quorum at the August meeting, should we put that off until September? Or should we schedule it for August? Because once we schedule it.
Do we need a
No, I
quorum
think
for a
we don't
hearing?
have to have a proper hearing, only if you're voting that day. You said we don't have to vote that day, so.
No, but if you're gonna put out a notice for a public hearing,
And there's 6 of us in this space that didn't indicate we had any issues with that date, so that's a quorum. I mean, the 3 of you, if Barbara doesn't.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I think we keep it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So just to get those couple of things taken care of, you know, just to get them on.
So we would still set the public hearing
Mhm.
for August. All right.
okay,
I think
I would
the-
say you have to have a minimum of six meetings in addition to the annual. So we have a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
If we want to, forget about December because it's a problem, a few others, so.
Well, I know, if people are traveling for the holidays, I just note that, I think that they're. I think. I think Christmas Day is on Monday.
Yeah.
So that would mean that the Thursday before the weekend might be.
Yeah, but I don't know that we're prepared to suggest an alternative, so I agree with
No,
others that
yeah.
we just leave it.
I'm just saying that.
Oh, yeah,
It
no, I
would
hear
probably
you.
be a prime time for people for holiday travel.
Yeah, so we
Plus
can always
the-
jettison as we get closer to.
Yeah, it's also, school break and so, I don't.
I do want to say I'm not going to be able to make the February meeting.
For sure.
I move to accept the proposed 2023-2024 meeting dates.
I will second that. Lori.
I'll get it backwards.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the board meeting dates? Say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right. That's at 7:44. Okay, committee assignments. So, some of these are requests, some of these are not requests, some of these are a best guess. So, if there's anyone who really doesn't want to be on a committee or really wants to be on a different committee, we might be able to.
I would like to stay on the building and grounds committee.
Where are you?
I'm not on the
Switch with you. How are you that I can switch with you?
ad hoc board
Yes.
development. I'm not on.
I can come off. of
Okay,
that.
I'll replace Narina on the building and grounds.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All right, Vanessa on building and grounds and Marina is, does anyone else want to be on a committee or not be on a committee? Because it's kind of a best guess. So, and I had a lot of committee chairs who were, at their 2-year mark. So I had to, and also some board members, preferred not to chair committees. So, it was a little bit of a, like I said, best guess. So if,
I'd also be interested in joining the nominating committee. I believe the bylaws say that there need to be a minimum of 3, so could it take an original member?
I'll ask
Oh, I
Marcia,
know we voted on that.
Could,
earlier, too.
could nominating committee take an additional member?
The bylaws say 3,
Say
Only 3 or a minimum of 3?
it says 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right, any other, requests to not be on a committee or be on a committee?
Yeah, the nominating committee of 3 shall be elected annually.
That's not on here.
Corey, are you?
I don't know, the historical
You may-
context of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on for 5 years, so if you guys want to replace me, you can, but it's like this, so. Yeah.
No, Rachel.
That's trustees.
No, stay on.
Oh, and Guilderland Library Foundation, I didn't ask you, Narina, if you wanted to still be on there.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Right, so, you'd like to stay and you'd like to stay as Joy Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, unless you guys want to, you'll have to hold a vote to appoint somebody different if you want to have somebody, my term with UHLS is 5 years. So you're welcome to vote on it, but it will need a vote.
For someone else for UHLS?
Yeah, because I have a 5-year term there.
Very good. So, with that change, Vanessa, in place of Norina on the Building and Grounds, committee. Is there a motion to approve the board committees? Motion.
Second.
Norina, second. All in favor of approving the,
Oh, can I just mention, can I just say something? I was on the labor management and the personnel committee for 2 years, so I kind of have an idea what's going on, although more recently, there's some issues that have come up and we were supposed to schedule some meetings, so if you want to like email me.
I do, it's on my list here.
Yeah.
And personnel, that's on my little check.
Professional, and definitely Natalie would probably do better, but I can certainly tell you what we've
Yeah.
done so far.
Yeah, Natalie and or me, like, if you just want to be efficient, maybe it's the 4 of us on the chain so we can.
Yeah,
Help you
I'll
transition.
touch base because I was not on those committees, so I need to kind of get up to speed.
And you're coming in at the right time, because there's certain issues that are coming up right now, so.
We have a boisterous group of people in the study room next door.
They're excited about whatever they're working on.
all right, any other, issue or,
The calendar.
about the,
Oh, about
board
the board
committees, we're just voting on
okay.
board committees. All in favor of, approving the board committees, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right, now. The calendar. So.
Attention library patrons.
The,
Public library is changing its regular weekday hours starting Monday, July 17th. Weekday hours will be Monday through Thursday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m.
so we were just discussing this.
There's your vote in action.
Exactly. So, so now we have, the regular hours reflected as, grouping at 8, Monday through Thursday, and then we have the summer hours, reflecting that as well. And then we have the, all the, various holidays and, staff development day, any, anything you want to add to the calendar?
Not really. I mean, we did vet the, I guess this is more about the board meeting dates. We vetted that against the school calendar, the Jewish holidays to make sure that we were not bumping up against any of those. So
Any questions, discussion about the calendar? All in favor of approving the calendar? Say aye.
Wait, did we have a meeting? I mean, a motion.
Oh, yeah, we-
I just have a quick question. I don't remember.
Oh,
what
we didn't have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, or do we have a motion?
No, we don't.
No.
We don't.
I'll move that we approve.
Cory?
I'll second.
Just a quick question. What had we decided about the day of Thanksgiving? That was an optional day. The day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, the day after that, yeah, if a person wants to take that off, they've got to, work through their
Okay,
department.
so we're open. the
Yeah,
day after.
yeah, we're-
Okay, thank you.
So,
I'm sorry.
Our Black Friday sale is that everything is 100% off.
Only we answer. Now there's a motion. So all in favor of the motion to approve the calendar? Aye. Anyone?
Aye.
All right, after that, that's. All right, is there any public comment, public input? No public input. Anything else? We need to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hey, Cory. All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
All right. 7:53, Joe. All right. We are adjourned.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah, the painting.
Picture.
It looks lovely.
So, that's the one I sent the email about. It's 1830